Welcome to the deep dive. You know, sometimes the simplest things hold the deepest secrets. Today, we're taking a deep dive into something you might not have thought much about, the humble letter W. We often connect it with concepts like wind, wave, wide, whirl. But have you ever really stopped to consider why? We're going to unpack how its jagged, sort of oscillating form, the very sound it makes, might carry profound meaning, maybe reaching right back to nature itself.
That's right. And what we're exploring today touches on a really fascinating framework known as the Odam-Tilly theory. Now, this theory, Odam-Tilly, can mean something like human language. It posits that the basic building blocks of our language, our letters, didn't just pop up randomly.
Okay.
Instead, the idea is they originated from direct natural perception, so from the shapes, the sounds, the symbolic experiences our ancestors had in their world.
Right.
And the windstorm, well, it serves as a remarkably clear illustration of this theory's ideas, especially when we look closely at the letter W.
That's a powerful idea. So, okay, how does the letter W get so tied up with wind? It feels like more than just, a coincidence. Let's dig into the science behind how wind actually makes sounds and shapes out there in nature.
Definitely. When you have a strong wind blowing across a landscape, especially through forests or even around single trees, the effects are, well, they're pretty profound. You see branches bending, sometimes swept way over to one side. And this isn't just random movement, it's governed by specific scientific principles. These shape both what we see and what we hear.
What are those principles then?
Well, primarily we can look at maybe three key forces. First, there's Bernoulli's principle.
Ah,
Right. As wind speeds up over the curved surfaces of tree branches, the pressure actually drops.
hmm
This essentially pulls those branches in the wind's direction. That's why you physically see them bending over.
makes sense.
Second, you've got mechanical oscillation. Flexible branches, they literally vibrate when air flows over them. And these vibrations, they create sound waves, audible frequencies.
Like a string being plucked, almost.
In a way, yeah. And finally, there's turbulence. As wind rushes through narrow gaps, like between branches and leaves, it creates these turbulent air patterns. And this is precisely what produces those really distinct whooshing, wavy sounds, often a very clear, kind of drawn-out whoa.
Huh. So it's not just a general windy noise, it's that specific whoop, 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 wow sound that's really central here.
Exactly. That specific sound and this naturally occurring acoustic signature, it's shaped by several things. The actual speed of the wind, the air density, the vibration of the leaves, and the wood itself, and even the resonance you get among leaves or trees that are grouped closely together. All these things chip in to create that unique, pervasive sound.
That's really insightful, thinking about the physics behind the sound of wind itself. Now, if we shift from listening to looking, think about this. What does a tree look like in a really strong wind? Can you maybe visualize how nature itself might almost seem to, I don't know, draw the letter W?
Oh, absolutely. When you look at the profile of a tree getting hit by strong wind, it's quite striking, isn't it? How nature seems to mimic that W shape. The branches curve like waves, some parts bend higher, others lower. It really does resemble that distinctive zigzag pattern.
Yeah, I can picture that.
It's a very clear visual signature. And it's not just trees either. You see wind patterns making wavy shapes across clouds or on the surface of water or even fields of tall grass.
Right, ripples.
Exactly. Ripples and waves. This just reinforces that wave-like visual we connect with W. So the shape of W, the theory suggests, isn't just some arbitrary script somebody invented. It's more like a direct abstraction of what nature does during wind movements. It symbolizes oscillation, direction, force.
Okay, so if these sounds and these shapes are so kind of baked into our natural experience, how does the Odom-Tilly theory, the one you mentioned earlier, how does it actually connect that observation, that natural stuff, to the letter W itself, its formation, its meaning?
Right, this is where the Odom-Tilly theory gets really specific about W. It suggests that W represents a force of nature you can't see directly, but you can definitely hear it and feel it. Right.
Yeah.
It symbolizes directional change, movement, often unstable, oscillating movement. And it even carries perhaps an emotional meaning, awe, reaction, maybe disturbance. The theory proposes that the specific W-W sound we talked about, the one the wind makes so clearly, was directly encoded into the letter W.
Encoded how?
Well, think about ancient times. Early humans, the theory often points to Turkic-speaking peoples in steppes and forests as potential originators or key developers. They heard this sound, they interpreted it, and then they symbolize it visually, using those jagged or curved lines they saw in nature, like the bending branches.
Hmm.
They would have given this powerful force a name, likely using sounds like woo or wava, something capturing that WWW sound. And then when they started creating symbols for communication, they essentially mimicked that sound and the visual impression in the symbol's design.
So it's like a whole sensory package deal. The look and the sound all wrapped up in one symbol.
Precisely. You could almost think of it like an equation. W equals wind. But wind here means the shape plus the sound plus the human experience of it. The wavy form itself signifies vibration, the direction of the force. The sound is, well, an auditory representation of that invisible movement. It's a holistic thing.
Okay, so with this really deep connection to wind and movement, how does this actually show up in the words we use every day? Are there clear examples where you see the W sound embodying these ideas in, common vocabulary?
Oh, absolutely. Just think about words like wind, obviously, but also
Oh.
wave, wander, whirl, even wiggle.
Huh, yeah. They all have that sense of movement.
Exactly. They all intrinsically carry meanings related to direction, wave-like motion, or just general movement. And this isn't just a fluke in English. If you look across many language families, especially if you dig into Indo-European roots and look at some Turkic analogs too, the W sound often pops up in words describing movement, breath, air,
Mm.
even concepts linked to spirit or life force. It seems to be this persistent linguistic echo of that fundamental natural experience, kind of encoded right into our speech.
So what we've really uncovered here is that the letter WU, it's far from just some random character someone drew. It seems to be a natural sensory representation of one of nature's most powerful, maybe most mysterious elements. The wind, its shape, its sound, its role in language, it all seems to point back to instinctive human observation, a really primal connection to the world around us.
Absolutely. And maybe to put this in perspective for you listening, the next time you actually see a tree bent over in a storm or you hear that distinct doo sound of the wind, you're not just observing a weather event. You could be witnessing the living history of language.
Hmm.
How humanity learned to take meaning directly from the natural world and encode it into symbols. The letter W really does seem to be a sonic echo of the wind and a visual signature of motion itself.
That really changes how you look at it, doesn't it? So what does this all mean for how we might understand other letters? What other unseen forces, what other natural phenomena might have shaped the very symbols we use every single day without a second thought?